Hey SEOs, this is Oliver from Trusted Search Marketing, and today I'm going to talk to you about tips for dominating SEO in 2022. We have a lot of actionable content coming your way, which we believe is essential for your overall success in SEO strategy in 2022. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, please do us a solid by subscribing to our YouTube channel by clicking the notification bell to be notified when we publish more awesome content like this. We have a lot of content coming. We appreciate also if you give us your thoughts and opinions on future SEO trends by commenting below. So, 2021 was a big year for SEO. There were a little less than a dozen Google algorithm changes tracked so far to date, but they were all substantial. The algorithm updates from 2021 focus on a few overarching themes that include cleaning up quality, like pruning rich snippets in the medical and finance space, multiple spam updates overhauling Google's product algorithm, and a page experience and core vitals updates, just to name a few. These changes indicate that Google is continuing to take their time to focus on the user experience, address web spam, and align their algorithm with their long-term goal of providing the very best search results to their users. This is why you're going to see us focus a lot on content optimization, user experience, as well as SEO site architecture in hopes of aligning your site with Google. Before I begin, I just want to mention that in this video, we're going to talk about how you can improve your overall content and on-site strategy as it relates to SEO. There are a lot of videos on YouTube that break these tips down with one overarching goal of improving your content, but I promise you, we are going to load this video with a lot of value and actionable tips. So, let's get into it. Refresh or redirect older pages with low engagement. We believe so strongly in this tip that we make content audits an integral part of our overall SEO process for our clients. There are some massive opportunities here at the page level beyond tweaking meta tags, headings, adding keywords. A true content audit will allow you to evaluate the content on each page for engagement, keyword clarity, competitiveness, and help you to address things like keyword content cannibalization or even indexation issues. I'll give you an example. We have multiple clients with very large websites. I'm talking about an excess of 100,000 pages of content accumulated over several years. By performing a thorough content audit, we were able to isolate pages that have poor traffic, minimal search impressions, no links, and in some cases, keyword cannibalization for more engaging pages on the website. In this case, we're able to identify hundreds of pages that have been dropped from Google's index due to thin, poor content and poor user experience, and most importantly, poor site structure. In another instance, we were able to see blogs that were targeting the same keywords, but the lower engaging page was ranking. Well, all of this sounds great. How exactly can you get started with a content audit? Well, there are plenty of tools that can help you perform a decent content audit. By using Google Analytics, Search Console, Ahrefs, you can cross-reference the data and obtain a page-by-page analysis of how each page's content is performing. Screaming Frog can also pull in most of this data, but we found that SEMrush can pull all this data together for you in a more digestible report. Additionally, once you have all this data, you can set up rules that help you decide what to do with each page and incorporate them into SEMrush to help you categorize them for action. One of these rules we use in SEMrush is to help us make decisions. For example, does the page have more than 100 visits per year? If it doesn't, does it have any backlinks? If it has no searches but it has backlinks, we will consider 3 or 1 redirecting that page to a better performing and similar piece of content. If the page doesn't have any links, then we would consider rewriting the page, redirecting the page, or taking it off the site to allow better content to rank. If the page in question does have traffic, then we look for its engagement. We can use time on site and bounce rate for that metric. If the page has traffic and a high bounce rate, we mainly review it for relevancy and potentially rewrite the content to better align with the targeted keywords on the page. If the page does have traffic, but it has a low bounce rate, we look at whether it converts. If the page doesn't convert, we review that page for relevancy and conversion rate optimization. As SEOs, so much of our time is focused on keywords, rankings. We very rarely focus on the quality of the content and the conversion rate. Google is really starting to evolve on this front, and the digital marketing community really needs to make it a priority here. What's the point of bringing in the traffic if it doesn't even convert and the traffic bounces? Implementing a hub and spoke content model. Hub and spoke models have been around for a while now under many different names. Some of you may have heard this model referred to as the content pillar model, where you use supplementary content to promote larger content assets. The hub and spoke model is a great way to become more relevant around the topic and expand your coverage of related keywords. Some of the other benefits include keyword expansion, increased traffic, as well as downstream metrics like leads and sales. So what exactly is the hub and spoke model? Think of it as a bicycle wheel where the spokes help to support the content and main hub of the wheel. In this case, the hub is the main and usually broader topic you are trying to promote. The spokes are all of the supporting content that relates to that main topic. From a keyword perspective, the hub is the main head keyword, while the spokes are secondary keywords or even your meaty middle keywords. To take this model even further, you can extend the spokes by having them linked to even more granular long-tail keywords. Having multiple interlinked and topically relevant but strategically optimized pages helps to boost your authority within the search engines. Now, let's put this into action. Let's say that you are an e-commerce store that sells shoes, for example. These keywords are highly competitive, so in this case, it would make sense to have multiple hub and spoke models inside of each other. For example, let's say you were targeting the keyword men's shoes. That is your hub. Your spokes are keywords like men's athletic shoes, men's dress shoes, men's boots, and so on and so on. To connect these pages, you use an internal linking strategy from the spokes to the larger, broader term, or hub, men's shoes. This hub and spoke model helps Google to understand the relationship and the authority of the main keyword to the secondary keywords while highlighting its importance within the site hierarchy. As I mentioned before, it makes sense to continue the hub and spoke model throughout the site hierarchy. So, for example, I would take one of these spokes, say men's dress shoes, and break that spoke out even more to include things like Oxford men's dress shoes, Derby men's dress shoes, men's dress loafers, and lastly, I break these out if possible to include even more long-tail keywords. For example, I'd use one of the spokes, let's say men's dress loafers, and break that into even more spokes that include things like men's dress loafers on sale, men's dress loafers with tassels, men's penny loafers, or incorporate keywords with colors or materials like men's dress loafers suede or men's dress loafers black. Wow, say that 10 times fast, YouTube. The overall strategy not only allows you to create highly targeted and optimized content around a strategic keyword or a small group of similar keywords, but it gives Google the space and context to understand the relevance and the authority of these keywords as they relate to each other and your overall site. Google is continuing to move forward with its natural language processing capabilities, especially regarding voice search. So providing this level of understanding to Google is a necessary endeavor moving forward. Companies that have employed the hub and spoke model have seen a dramatic increase in their traffic and sales as the pages are even more relevant to their search intent. Give it a try and let us know if it worked out for your company in the comments below. Optimize titles and descriptions for better click-through rates. Optimizing for organic click-through rates, or CTRs, is one of the things we tend to overlook as SEOs. We can be so over-focused on getting your keywords to rank and converting traffic that sometimes we overlook the simpler things that we can do to increase our existing traffic flow. The great thing about optimizing your organic click-through rate is almost completely independent from the keyword ranking and conversion conversation. Let me explain. By testing and optimizing your click-through rates, you're able to leverage existing traffic and rankings to increase the rate of which users click through to your website from the search engines. As SEOs, the process we go through to create SEO-friendly meta tags involves creating titles, descriptions that rank well in search and entice a user to click on your listing in the organic search results. Most commonly, we tend to leave the metadata in place unless we feel the need to re-optimize for it. More commonly, refocus on specific keywords. Very rarely do we go down through this exercise of conversion or click-through rates in mind. That's not to say that agencies like ours and other SEOs don't do this, but from my experience, it's not as commonly done. This goes to my point from earlier that a lot of the SEO community is hyper-focused on traffic and rankings over user experience and conversions. Before we get into some of the ways which you can optimize your organic click-through rates, let's take a second to make sure we are all on the same page here. First off, I want to make sure that we all understand what we're talking about here when we're talking about organic click-through rates. Not click-through rates from paid traffic like Google Ads or social ads. Organic click-through rates are the ratio of users that click on your organic results in the search engines compared to the number of times that user is shown your organic listing. As a formula, it would look something like organic clicks divided by impressions. Backlinko did a study a couple years back where they analyzed 5 million Google search results to better understand the click-through rate. For first page ranking, the click-through rate varied dramatically between position 1 and position 10 by about an average of 11%. Throughout the study, they also find some other interesting pieces of information. For example, the number 1 position in Google is 10 times more likely to get clicked than position 10. Organic click-through rates for positions 7 through 10 are essentially the same. Moving up just one spot in the search results increases your click-through rate by approximately 30%. They also came up with some fascinating findings relating to how the title tags are written, such as title tags that contain a question have a 14% higher click-through rate than ones that do not. Title tags between 15 and 40 characters have the highest click-through rate, about 8% higher than character lengths outside of that range. Surprisingly, adding descriptive adjectives like best, insane, powerful, amazing decreased the website's click-through rate by almost 13%. Title tags that have emotional language, how to get SEO results that will make you jump for joy, for example, increased click-through rates by around 7%. This didn't change if the emotional sentiment was positive or negative. It can be either one. And lastly, organic listings with meta descriptions resulted in 6% more clicks than those without a description. Huge shout out to Brian Dean over at Backlinko for putting this content together. If you haven't seen Brian's work, I'd highly recommend checking out his blog as well as his YouTube channel. He's definitely one of the best. So now that you understand the dramatic difference between optimizing your meta tags can make, let's talk about how to do it. It's a lot easier than you think. The first action you need to when optimizing your meta tags is performing some sort of a content audit and identifying the pages with the lowest organic click-through rate and start there. There are a few ways that you can get this information, but I'd start in Google Search Console. You can also pull this data into Screaming Frog's crawler as well as SEMrush's tool as well. Just name a few others. Once you're in Google Search Console, you'll need to navigate to the Performance tab. From there, you'll need to make sure that both queries as well as average click-through rates are both checked. You'll want to export this and save this data. It will become the baseline that you can track your improvements and impressions from if you decide to do so. Before we get into testing, I'd be careless if I didn't point out that now would be a great time to double check for any keyword cannibalization. For those of you that are new to SEO, keyword cannibalization is when you have multiple pages optimized for the same keyword. Some of you may think that this sounds great because you'll have multiple whacks at the apple, so to speak. But what ends up happening is that you spread out your organic clicks over multiple pages and end up competing with yourself while limiting the click-through rate of each listing. This is a huge mistake in SEO and something you should correct definitely in 2022. Okay, now on to testing. Once you've isolated a group of pages that have lower click-through rates, you'll want to cut that list in half. You're going to be changing the titles and meta descriptions on only half of this list, while the second half will act as your control group, if you will, in the test. Once you have a list of pages that you're going to experiment on, you can begin making changes. As we discussed above, consider using emotions, making your titles more concise, adding things like calendar year, free shipping if applicable, and add numbers, data, brackets. The sky is the limit. If you're running PPC or paid social ads, now would be a great time to pull that ad copy out and look at those data as far as what titles are working for them as well. Once you have optimized your titles, go ahead and publish them. In a few weeks, you'll want to go back into Google Search Console and pull that same data again and compare the changes you've made with the changes in the click-through rate. Make sure you take notes of your control group, the group you didn't change, to make sure that it was your new tags that moved the needle and not any kind of Google update or general market shift. If the test was successful, make those changes to the control group and repeat the process. Once your titles are perfect, for now, I'd recommend going through the same process with the descriptions to see if you can improve the click-through rate even more. Number 4, focus on long-form and media integrated content. You may be noticing a theme to my recommendations if you've been following our videos for 2022 and the rest of this content. One of the biggest questions I get from clients is always, how long should my content be? Does size matter? I'm talking about content, guys. Get your mind out of the gutter. The answer is simple. Yes, the length of your content does matter, but not in the way you would think. For years in the SEO community, experts have been pushing long-form content and the recommended number of words seems to grow each month. But without any real strategy or reason behind it. Simply put, there is no, well, Mr. Client, every piece of content you write should be 2,000 words. That said, you typically need to meet a minimum requirement of around 300 to 500 words per piece of content. But you could need 10 times that to rank. Now you're probably thinking that sounds like the most wishy-washy answer I've ever heard in my life. Well, let me explain. Both short and long form content have their place depending on how you're going to use it. But the number of words needed per piece of content is really a subject of competitive intelligence. In other words, how many words, among other factors, does Google like to see in the top 10 search results for a specific keyword or industry? A simple way to do this is to manually look at the top 10 websites for your keyword. You'll want to make note of things like word count, page structure, images, videos, headings, and try to come to a consensus as to what ranking factors Google is focused on for that term. In layman's terms, you are to reverse engineer the listings of the first page for the search results to help you better optimize your own. This can be a pretty time-intensive endeavor, but there are a few tools that make this much, much easier. SEMrush's SEO Writing Assistant tool is a great way to compare your content to those that are ranking for your desired keywords. It will give you a score and some initial suggestions on how to improve your rankings by adding elements, keywords, and formatting your general overall content. Personally, my favorite new tool is one called Surfer SEO. If you're not using this tool, you need to be. Surfer SEO analyzes in detail and attributes the top 10 competing pages on the first page of your SERPs for that keyword. It also brings natural language processing into their analysis. Natural language processing is something that Google is already using to better understand search queries and rank content better. As you build out your content in the editor, the tool will give you suggestions and score your content. You're able to see each attribute of your content, like heading, length, title, compared to that of your competition. By using a content tool like Surfer SEO, you can optimize your content for length, format, and keyword usage. In most cases, Surfer SEO will tell you to write more based on your competitors, but I've also seen marketers put a 9,000 word article into the editor tool on Surfer, and it suggested to reduce it by half the size. The marketer who wrote the content was shocked by the result, but he followed the suggestions and saw a massive increase in the traffic from the SERPs almost immediately. I can't recommend this tool enough. It's absolutely amazing. And one of our team members, Julia, is amazing at it. I also want to briefly touch on the usage of integrated media like video, images, graphical data, statistics, audio, what have you. We've recently performed a content analysis for one of our enterprise-level clients and found that blog posts that contain video and images far outranked and saw more traffic than their text-only counterparts. Not only does this show that media helps increase engagement, but it also shows that Google really likes to see a mixture of content forms within the web pages. Let's also not forget that images and videos show up in Google's universal search results. They do. When specifically talking about video, we know that over 60% of searches on Google will show videos in the results. Still don't believe me? We know that 93% of search professionals surveyed notice a significant increase in time spent on pages when they have a video on the page. Video platform Wistia found out that pages with videos directly correlated with visitors spending over 2 times the amount of time on the page than a page without video. Lastly, WordStream found out that content that has video is 3 times more likely to be linked to than pages without video. And we all know that backlinks are key in increasing your site's domain authority and overall rankings. Lastly, an agency named Lemonlight conducted a study where they found that adding video to an optimized page increased their organic traffic from 10% to 250%. So yeah, the moral of the story here is that Google loves integrated content, and more importantly, Google and users love video. Number 5, remove outdated and spammy tactics. Now is a great time to take a second to clean up your SEO efforts from things that just don't work in 2022. Primarily, over-optimization, things like keyword stuffing, as well as keyword cannibalization, but also spammy tactics that haven't worked in decades. As SEOs, we spend a lot of time trying new things and spend almost no time in removing outdated tactics or things that could be considered spam, right? There are hundreds of outdated tactics from the past 20 years that no longer work in today's SEO environment. Some of these tactics are just plain, well, useless. Some can even get you penalized from Google or derail your entire search efforts. I'm going to go over 5 outdated tactics you should remove immediately or avoid as we move into 2022. First one coming up, keyword stuffing and cannibalization. Okay, keyword stuffing is an old school SEO tactic that came about in the late 90s when SEOs would try to use the keywords and variations of those keywords repeatedly throughout their copy. In early days, SEOs would even switch the color of the text to white and continue to write the keywords at the bottom of the page so that only spiders could read them. Obviously, this is a tactic that had very short lifespan, but general keyword stuffing is still alive and well and very common within most SEOs. One question you may have is, well, how much keyword usage is too much? That's a tricky question to answer, but the simple answer is, what I call a gut check. The gut check is not a scientific measure, but instead considers readability. In other words, does your placement of keywords make the content sound clunky or robotic? Keyword stuffing almost always stands out like a sore thumb, at least to me. Here's an over-exaggerated example of keyword stuffing. Okay. Are you looking for laptop repair in Lancaster, Pennsylvania? Our technicians are the very best in laptop repair in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. If you're looking for a service or repair of a laptop in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you've came to the right place. We treat your laptop repair like it's our very own, so if you're looking for repair your laptop in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, call us today. Like I said, you can spot this keyword stuffing a mile away. But for those of you that like to have a little bit more quantitative support, I'd recommend using a keyword density tool to help you evaluate keyword stuffing. Keyword density is just like it sounds. It takes the use of keywords and their variants and compares them to the overall text. Typically, industry looks for about a 1 to 3% keyword density. However, you can take up to 5% if you're feeling lucky, but ultimately you don't want to go higher than 5%. To help you better understand this, note that I ran my previous example about the laptop repair through the free keyword density tool that I put a link in this video, and that has a keyword density of about 10%, which is about 2 to 3 times what we'd expect to see. Next thing, link spam. Link spam is one of the most easiest ways to get penalized by Google. It's so volatile that it's created a whole underground industry that now is called negative SEO. This unscrupulous industry exists to blast your domain with as much link spam as possible to the point where you receive a manual penalty from the search engines. Horrible, I know. But it's important to know that it does exist. Funny enough, there are people that hire SEO companies, usually low-cost ones or ones from overseas, that engage in this practice as part of their primary link building activity or business needs. Why do they do this? Because it's scalable and easy to do, but has horrible repercussions to your SEO domain efforts. Some of the most common types of link spam include things like private blog networks. These are privately owned networks of blogs that all link to you and triangulate linking efforts. Paid low-quality links for the express intent of manipulating search results, a big Google no-no. Link exchanges, link wheels, low-quality press release syndication, social bookmark sites, blogs, forums, content, spam. I mean, I could go on and on. There's dozens of these types of links that are considered spam. I think you get the picture. We'll talk more about how to tell if you have some of these links and what to do about them in a later video. But for now, I want to show you some of the things that the SEOs are promoting that have zero value that can actually hurt your website. I also want to give you a tip about bad link neighborhoods. I always try to keep my links away from certain types of content. I call these the 5 Ps of link building. They are, in no particular order or favor, adult content, poker, gambling, payday loans, paid affiliates, pills, think gimmicky weight loss products, and private blog networks, PBNs. Now these businesses may be fine, but typically the websites in these industries are associated with questionable link building tactics. It just kind of happens. Article spinning is another bad one to avoid, aka duplicate content. Using content to acquire backlinks is always the go-to method for link earning, but writing quality content like this can take a day or weeks to do. Some internet marketers try to cut corners by either using one piece of content on multiple external websites, which devalues the content in Google's eyes. Article spinning came about to try and address this issue. Article spinning swaps out words in the content with synonyms and to essentially change the words without changing their meaning. There's even software that does this for you, and unfortunately there's no substitute for good, hard, old-fashioned work. So cutting corners like this is a surefire way to get yourself in trouble, get your website penalized. Instead, you need to make sure that all the content you produce, whether it be for your website or for your outreach purposes, is distinctly unique and of the utmost quality. Failure to abide by this rule can get you penalized by Google's algorithm. Just ask the millions of sites that were negatively impacted by Google's Panda update, also known as Farmer update. It was a wrecking ball to those many websites, so again, super important. Anchor text optimizing is another way. Another spam tactic that has been used over and over again over the last decade is the over-optimization of your anchor text, specifically in links. For those of you that aren't aware, the anchor text is a clickable part of the link, the part that you see on the actual web page. The anchor text helps Google better understand what the page is all about. For example, if the anchor text says cats, Google will understand that the destination website is about cats. We saw this work to a fault in the last couple of decades. For a long period of time, it was how SEO community optimized link signals. This tactic was used so frequently and had such a dramatic effect on the search results that it was even given a name, Google bombing. Let me illustrate the point. If I were to ask you what used to rank for the term click here, what would you think it was? Well, for a long period of time, it was the Adobe PDF download page. Interesting, right? It's important to know that the page wasn't optimized for the keyword click here anywhere, but instead, there were so many people that linked to Adobe's resources with the anchor text click here that Google associated Adobe's page with that term. If you think about it, it makes completely logical sense because the website that offered PDF content would almost always link to a PDF reader so that their users could view the content. The sentence generally looks something like this: to download a PDF reader, click here. Click here. Over the years, Google evolved and added over-optimization of their anchor text into their spam algorithm. Nowadays, SEOs are very strategic and cautious in how we use anchor text. We still optimize for the main keyword, but we mix them in with other signals that include things like keyword variations, branded keywords, naked URLs, just the URL, images. One of the first actions we do when we take on a new SEO client is to perform an anchor text analysis to make sure they are using good anchor text variety. Based on that assessment, we then balance out the diversification of their anchor text based on the competitive intelligence we collect. As weird as it sounds, our clients may see improvements in their overall ranking signals by varying their anchor text to include non-keyword related terms. So the action item here is twofold. The big takeaway here is that you need to assess your link profile to make sure you know what your strategy needs to be, and then use your anchor text to support that strategy. Another point here is to use what I call the is it easy test. I could go on and on listing 50 different types of outdated SEO spam tactics, but instead I'd like to teach you a simple test that I use. I literally ask myself, is it that easy? Here's a couple examples, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Is it that easy to pay $300 a month for SEO to rank above companies that have been performing high-level SEO for years? Of course not. But thousands of people still do it. Is it that easy to use hidden doorways or cloak pages or try to trick Google? No. If it was that simple, everybody would be doing it. Google understands that you're trying to trick them. Is it easy to hide text or links on a page to manipulate the search engines? No. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. Again, these are things these shortcuts, that don't work. There's no shortcut in SEO. But there are tons of SEO agencies that offer their secret sauce and tactics to try and game the search engines. Some of these black hat or aggressive tactics might work for a short period of time, but ultimately ranking your website will fall like a house of cards, and the cleanup and recovery time will take months. So, as we move into 2022, I'd recommend taking a second and setting yourself up for success by assessing your risk for questionable SEO tactics that need to be addressed. You can do this by researching these yourself or getting a second opinion from a more qualified SEO agency. Most SEO providers will offer a free initial assessment like Trusted Search does, but they'll be quick to point these things out. Take a second and invest in your future proofing of your SEO efforts. This could be one of the most important things that you do for your business. Focusing on voice search and keyword intent. Most SEOs are aware that in 2019, Google launched an algorithm update called BERT. This stands for Bidirectional Encoder Representations from Transformers. Whew. The essential concept of this update was to increase Google's capabilities of understanding a keyword's true intent. BERT was a fundamental change to Google's understanding of how people search for different things in different ways. In 2019, voice assistants were really starting to take off, but today's statistics are staggering. For those of you still holding out and thinking that this is some sort of future sci-fi endeavor that will go away, let me shine some light on some real statistics for you related to voice search. Social media today reports that 52% of people using voice search while driving, hello local search, 65% of consumers aged 25 to 49 use voice search enabled devices daily. Search Engine Watch reports that 21% of users use voice search on a weekly basis. These are just a few of the juicy statistics that make a compelling case as to why optimizing for voice search is such a big deal in 2022. But more than that, what's important to note is that Google is optimizing for queries beyond keywords. With the introduction of voice search, queries have become more, call it conversational in nature, as opposed to spoken search queries that are often much different than the typed search queries you would see in Google. But what if I told you that BERT was just the appetizer to the main course? Over the past 5 years, Google has been in a massive acquisition mode, attempting to get their hands on products in the natural language processing space to help their algorithm better understand more human and conversational search queries. In 2021, Google has gone even farther to update their capabilities in interpreting the natural way people search. And the most recent update is known as MUM, or Multitask United Model. Google's head of search team went on record saying that Google's new natural language processing model is 1,000 times faster and more powerful than BERT and can multitask in order to unlock information in new ways. MUM, M-U-M, is an AI model that can truly understand the intentionality of the user. It incorporates things like context and feelings to help it answer questions that are unique and hyper-relevant to a user's search query. Another cool ability of this initiative is that it has the potential to understand multiple search formats, such as text, images, voice, and so on. As cool as this sounds, it's important to know that MUM is still in testing, but it is in the public domain now. So more than ever, it's important to optimize your website for intent and work on your authority signals such as EAT, E-A-T. For those of you that haven't heard of EAT before, it stands for Expertise, Authority, and Trustworthiness, EAT. It can essentially be broken down into quality content that users love, the E, powerful links from trustworthy and relevant sites, A, and brand metrics and user sentiment, T. Keep in mind that this is an oversimplification of the EAT process. We'll go into this process a little bit more detail in another video, but you can see how EAT and MUM build off one another, and it's never been more important to take these new signals into account. Lastly, it's important to note that Google's algorithm is using other relevant data to help make better decisions based on search queries. For example, Google will consider things like misspellings, abbreviations, previous search history, location, what a user is currently using, what apps the user is currently using. So now that we know why voice search and keyword intent is so important and what's driving that change, let's go over some tactics that you can use to optimize your SEO for voice search and capitalize on user intent. Let's do it. 1, you gotta understand your customer. Time to brush up on your marketing personas and their usage of technology. Focus on conversational keywords, another one. Long gone are the days of optimizing for a single keyword. You now need to optimize for long tail keywords, including variants, questions, and also conversational adaptations of those terms. Next one, create detailed answers to multiple questions around a keyword. Use things like headlines, ask questions followed by a clean, concise answer. Use schema markups when applicable. Add FAQs to your site. Make sure you perform question-related keyword research. Consider a good tool called answerthepublic.com, great tool. Don't forget to include local in your SEO strategy as well. Using keyword intent and optimizing for voice search is a current necessity that I believe will only expand as we move into 2022 and beyond. Look at your targeted pages to make sure you are employing powerful keyword strategy and future-proofing your site against Google's advancements in the natural language processing space. Optimizing for Google's rich snippets. Structured data, schema, rich snippets, feature snippets, what do they all mean? These words are often used interchangeably, so let's get the record straight. Structured data is a markup, essentially code, that is added to a website so you can be more easily understood by search engines. Google can identify and read structured data so it can display the data correctly in the search results, usually in rich snippets. Schema, otherwise known as schema.org, a bunch of different ways. It's more of a vocabulary used to define structured data. It helps define properties and classes for describing specific resources like people, properties, locations, services, and many, many more things. Rich snippets are types of structured data. There's types of structured data markups, really, that are pulled into Google's search results under specific listings. We see these things in things like recipe listings, where nutritional information and time to prepare are listed, or even travel listings, where prices and star ratings are listed out. Essentially, these rich snippets help enhance the overall experience by pulling relevant information directly into the search results. So let's talk about what opportunities exist using schema.org and marking up your site with that library of structured data. I'm going to talk about the top 10 ways you can use schema to enhance your listing. Keep in mind that there are hundreds of markups to choose from, and all are available on schema.org. Anyway, here are some of my favorites. First one is the organizational markup. This schema helps identify organizational brand signals that work to enhance Google's knowledge graph as well as a website snippet within Google. Attributions included in the snippet include things like social media links, your logo, entity name, and contact information. Next one, breadcrumb markups. Breadcrumbs are extremely popular in site architecture because they clearly illustrate a sense of organization and relationship between parts of the website. Breadcrumbs also help visitors feel more confident that they're in the right place on your website. Next one I like is product and offer markups. These are good ones. This is an essential markup for e-commerce. You have to have it. And it can be instrumental in increasing click-through rates for customers looking for specific products. Some of the information that can be pushed into the search results could include things like ratings, review counts, pricing, availability, and other product attributes. Another one I like is ratings and review markups, very similar. Having ratings and reviews published into the search results for your website can clearly drive people to your site. The best part is that these markups aren't reserved for e-commerce. Instead, you can find ways to include these naturally in almost any site. Local business markup. For local brick and mortar establishments looking to rank well in the local search results, this is an essential snippet. Google can pull things like your physical location, hours, contact information, and many other relevant pieces of information into the search results. Q&A markup. With all the emphasis we've been placing on content being used with intent and conversational kind of search queries, this markup can be very beneficial in helping Google bring your FAQ answers to the search results. Video markup, like we'll use for this one. Google loves video, right? And so do users. You can help Google crawl and index your video content on your website by adding video markup. Adding this markup will help Google pull the videos into search results for relevant search queries. Very essential. Event markup. This event markup can help promote your events like concerts, webinars, festivals, any really event in Google search results. This schema markup can bring in helpful information like date, location, price into users' view. Next one, recipe markup. This markup is not applicable to all industries, but it's very powerful if you're in the restaurant or food industry. This markup can pull out information like prep time, cook, total time, ingredients, images, nutritional information, reviews, and more. If you have recipes listed on your website, you should be using this markup. The thing markup. This one kind of makes me laugh, but yes, you can literally markup a thing. The bottom line is, if you have content on your website, then you can have a structured data point for it. There's structured data for everything. If you're curious whether you're already using structured data, I'd recommend using Google's Schema Market Validator to validate schema.org structured data on your website. Google also has a tool called Rich Results Test, which can test your structured data to see if Google's rich results can be generated by the structured data you have on your website. So you can actually check this stuff to make sure it's in and working correctly. Focusing on Core Web Vitals. Okay. In November of 2022, Google added 3 user experience signals which now make up what we call Core Web Vitals. These signals were added into a ranking algorithm in June of 2021. Core Web Vitals are essentially made up of 3 metrics: largest contentful paint, first input delay, and cumulative layout shift. These metrics were designed to help Google understand your website's overall page experience and general user experience. Websites that fail to measure well within these metrics risk being showed lower in the search results. So it's important to understand where your website ranks for these metrics, and more importantly, what you can do to fix them. Before we talk about how you can measure your results and what needs to be done to fix them, let's dive a little deeper into the 3 signals Google is measuring. Before we do that, I do want to mention that there are some general user experience fundamentals that you should be aware of. 1. Securing your server with an HTTPS. Having your site secured has been around for about 5 or more years from now, but there are still a lot of sites that are not doing this. It's a relatively easy thing to do and takes very little time. The entire point of HTTPS is that Google wants to ensure that a user's experience and data are secure, so they strongly encourage you to switch from HTTP to HTTPS. Recent data shows that having HTTPS in the URL correlates to higher rankings, and that's pretty apparent by just looking at the top 10 competitors for any keyword. Try it out for yourself. Another thing, mobile-friendly websites. The requirement for having a responsive or mobile-friendly website has been around for years, and at this point, most websites have followed that trend. However, there are still millions of websites that are not mobile-friendly. Google is so invested in mobile-friendly websites that they've gone so far as to develop a framework for mobile that they call AMP, Accelerated Mobile Pages. The adoption of AMP pages has been slow, but there is no excuse not to have a mobile-friendly website in 2022, so get mobile. Lack of spam and malware. Sounds obvious, right? Google is looking to serve the best experience possible to its users, and having websites that are littered with obstructive pop-up ads or infected with malware do not meet that objective. If you haven't already done so already, you want to take this opportunity to clean up things like malware, comment spam, and other mechanisms that like pop-ups or other advertisements that could detract from the positive user experience. All right, now back to Core Vitals. Let's discuss these 3 metrics in detail. Largest contentful paint, LCP. LCP is essentially a load time metric. It measures how long the page takes to load in the user's browser. This metric shouldn't necessarily be confused with page speed. LCP is designed to measure the real-world experience a user has with your website and generally how they interact with it. To help evaluate this for your website, Google has created a free and easy-to-use tool called Google PageSpeed Insights, which give you some guidance on how your website performs. You can also use Google Search Console to see how well your website performs. This can help you identify specific pages with issues on a global site view rather than running pages one by one in the Insights tool. Generally speaking, you want your LCP metric below 2.5 seconds. Anything above 5 seconds should be considered an immediate action item for you and your team to fix. So, how do you fix this? Great question. Unfortunately, this can be a bit of a trial and error situation as well. The Insights tool and other third-party tools can help you identify which part of your page is slowing it down and give you generally a place to start. Usually I find that page speed is generally affected by more than one issue, a couple issues. For example, large images, videos, or page elements, insufficient hosting, performance issues. Consider upgrading third-party scripts that may be slowing your website down, a lot of different things. The second metric Google uses within the core Website Vital is called First Input Delay. It's also known as FID, like I said. This metric measures the amount of time it takes a user to interact with your website. These interactions could be any interaction, but typically include things like using the navigation menu, clicking a link, adding text into a field, or opening a drop-down menu or accordion. The reason this metric is important to Google is it measures the real-world time it takes for a user to interact with the website or actually really use it. This is called a behavioral metric. For some websites where there are no interactions, like a blog, this metric might not be as relevant, but if your website is more of an application, then this metric is extremely important and the one you really want to optimize for. Next one is Cumulative Layout Shift. Cumulative Layout Shift, or CLS, measures the stability of a page as it loads. The metric measures how page elements move around while loading the page. That can create a poor user experience. We've all seen pages that you think have finished loading and then boom, a big image appears in the header and the rest of the content moves down. Super annoying, right? As you can imagine, this metric can also play into a page load time and also affect some of the other metrics we just talked about. Google defines a good CLS as a measurement of 0.1. I find most websites, specifically larger ones, struggle with this. Here are some things you could do to maximize your cumulative layout shift, CLS. 1. Use a different size attribute dimension for images and videos on your page so Google knows exactly how much space the element will need when loading. 2. Make sure your ad elements have a reserved space so that they don't push down the rest of the content as they load. 3. Add your heavier elements below the fold so that your top page isn't pushed down. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of great tools that you can use to evaluate these metrics, including free ones from Google that are available in Search Console. But as you move into 2022, it's a great idea for you to take time to see how your page performance is doing and set up a plan to correct them. Clean up your backlinks. It seems like most SEO activities go in cycles. For example, you'll do keyword research one and then you'll dust it off a year later. You'll perform an SEO audit once a year and that's it. But building backlinks is the exception to the rule. Building backlinks is something that we as SEOs continually do every month, forever. That being said, when was the last time you audited your backlinks of those of your competitors? When was the last time you evaluated your link profile for toxic links or created a disavow file to clean them up? If you're like most of us, this can be an afterthought and fall lower on the priority list as you attack more pressing SEO issues. But as we move into 2022, what better time there is to dust off those skills, focus on optimizing and cleaning up your backlink profile. For this SEO tip, I'm going to have you focus on 2 specific tasks: a complete backlink audit, including your competitors, as well as a link cleanup campaign, if applicable, which I'm pretty sure it is. Let's jump in. How to complete a backlink audit. While link building, in my opinion, is the hardest task in the SEO list, a link building audit doesn't have to be. Most SEOs target potential backlinks by chasing link targets that are thematically relevant and have the highest domain authority they can find. Easy enough. While these 2 factors are extremely important, there are several other factors to consider as well. Like everything in SEO, we tend to use competitive data in the SERPs and reverse engineer what Google sees as the most favorable results. Reverse engineering your competitors' links not only shows you the potential link building opportunities, it can also help you gain insight into the link profile of your competitors that are potentially ranking above you. To complete a link audit, you'll need to identify several competitors that are ranking above you, for starters, for your keywords. You'll also need to use tools like SEMrush or Ahrefs to analyze their backlink profiles and compare them to yours. Some of the metrics I would pay close attention to are number of links. This is most obvious for the metrics that you'll need to consider. I would clarify that while I say you want to look at the number of links you have, what I'm really talking about is the number of root domains. After all, Google doesn't really care if you get more than 1 link from a domain, right? If you have 1,000 links from one domain, it doesn't really matter. Domain authority. Besides the number of linking domains you have pointing to your site, it is also very helpful to identify the relevant strength and the authority of your backlink profile. By looking at the domain authority or the authority score, each tool calls it something else or something different, of your backlinks or of your website, you can get an idea of the quality of your backlink profile, not just the quantity. So look at that domain authority. No follow versus do follow. It's well documented fact that no follow links don't help you gain the appropriate domain authority that a do follow link does. Now, before I say anything more, I want to mention that the #1 rule in SEO is to be as natural as possible. So it's completely normal to have a mix of do follow and no follow links in your backlink profile. It is very possible that you might need to add some no follow links to your site to balance out your backlink profile. Use this ratio in your audit to see where you need to stand versus your competition. Link velocity. This is something that we don't really talk about in the SEO community, but it's important to mention. Link velocity is the speed at which you are building links to your website. A lot of companies will hire an SEO agency to build links for a period of time and then stop. Having a natural scaling backlink profile is an important authority signal, and comparing that data against your competitors can give you a sense of what velocity you should build backlinks at. Next one, types of links, text, image, Another metric that Google takes into account is what type of link your website gets. If your backlink audit reveals that most of your links to your website are from images, or redirects, or numerous other link types, you want to determine the best ratio for each link and type and calibrate your links accordingly based on your competitive data. Anchor text distribution. Just like any other link metric we've discussed, it's important to acquire link anchor text that is naturally diversified. Back in the day, and still commonly done by some, SEOs would exclusively use the keyword in their anchor text to prop up certain keywords. Today, we use a mixture of natural anchor text such as keyword variations, brand names, naked URLs to craft a healthy-looking backlink profile. Link toxicity. We will talk about this more in the next section, but you'll also want to compare the number of toxic links between you and your competitors. There are several tools to help you do this, and like I said, we'll talk more about this in a second. Once you've acquired these link metrics for your site as well as your competitors, you can start to clearly see how metrics of the websites that rank above you differ from your website. Perhaps they have higher percentage of do follow links than you do, or they have more diverse anchor text. Perhaps it's just as simple as they have more links than you, or the links they do have are higher quality or more thematically relevant to the subject matter you're working on. Whatever the trend is that you're seeing, it will allow you to get some goals, set some goals, gain some perspective for your link building campaigns that will allow you to close the gap between your site and that of your competitors. The other thing we recommend is doing a link cleanup. Link spam is a real thing. As the owner of an SEO agency, my team is constantly cleaning up outdated or spammy links that our clients have paid other SEO agencies to build. There are also a lot of links from scraper sites or sites that have been penalized by Google that need to be cleaned up. There's even a whole nasty industry called negative SEO, where SEOs build very spammy backlinks, use over-optimization signals to try and get a competitor penalized in the Google search results. That said, link spam is so common that most SEO agencies include some sort of link cleanup campaign in their link building efforts, or they should. However, if you're hoping to do this yourself, there are a lot of tools you can use to help you with the process. Tools like SEMrush, as well as link research tools, are some of my favorites to use, but you can also evaluate toxic links by yourself by looking at your backlink profile. Once you've identified a potential toxic link, you should first reach out to those websites and ask them to be removed. Once that has been done, you can create what's called a disavow file in Search Console, and Google will exclude these links from your backlink profile. If you're using a third-party link tool like SEMrush, most of these tools will actually help you identify potential toxic links, and some even allow you to upload a list straight to the Search Console disavow file. However, I would caution against uploading the file straight from the link tool to Google, because link tools are not always accurate. As a rule of thumb, you should always review the links manually before submitting them to Google via a disavow procedure. Here are some tips to help you spot bad links right away. Links from bad link neighborhoods are one. These are easy to spot based on their over-optimization and spammy tactics. Again, watch out for certain industries that are notorious for this. Look out for the 6 Ps: porn, pills, payday loans, paid affiliates, and private blog networks. Low quality and irrelevant sites, anything really that appears spammy. Once you have double-checked your toxic link list and performed outreach asking for the link to be removed, you can upload a disavow file straight through Google Search Console. Once you have uploaded your disavow file to Google, know that it can take a couple weeks for Google to deploy these changes or longer to their index. Once this is complete, you will have a beautifully manicured and well-optimized backlink profile that is ready to take on the new year. That's a wrap! All right, I know we went through a lot of topics in this video, and I hope that I made good on my promise to provide you with a ton of actionable items. If you enjoyed the content, please take a second to subscribe to our YouTube channel and be on the lookout for more great SEO tips and content. Thanks for watching and rank on!